If you're into games, and I feel like you just might be if you're watching this video right now, there's a good bet that you know who Capcom is. Love them or hate them, they've created some pretty awesome series over the last 25 years. Capcom's early years, though, were fairly mild. Before taking off with games that we all know, like Mega Man and Street Fighter, they put out some decent arcade shoot-'em-ups that, while not my favorite games ever, were fairly popular. In this episode, I'll be taking a look at one of those arcade shoot-'em-ups, a little game known as Commando here in the US, and its two direct sequels that followed after. Commando, released in 1985, was Capcom's first big hit. It was originally called Wolf of the Battlefield in Japan, but I'm pretty sure that the name change was to capitalize on some of the action movies of the mid-80s. Sure, Commando had nothing to do with the amazing Schwarzenegger film, but I'm sure Capcom wanted people to think that it did. This overhead run and gun starred Joseph Super Joe Gibson, on a mission to kill everyone in his path and destroy the enemy bases. He's armed with two weapons, a machine gun and grenades. That's it. There's surprisingly no power-ups at all in the entire game. These little blocks seem like they give you something cool, but nope, it's just more grenades. And those grenades, super hard to use effectively. While you can shoot in 8 directions, you can only throw grenades straight ahead. And the amount of enemies and bullets you're dodging makes it near impossible to line things up correctly. Commando consists of 2 missions with 4 levels each. After you finish all 8 levels, the whole thing loops again with increased difficulty. It's a pretty straightforward affair. There's not even any bosses to take on. Now, Commando was ported to a number of different consoles and PCs with varying level of success. Most people are probably most familiar with the NES version, but I'd never played it until recording video for this episode. I'd only played the Commodore 64 version for the longest time, which had the funkiest music. You'd think with Commando's success on different platforms that Capcom would hurry out a sequel. Well, instead they spun it off in a completely different direction. In fact, we wouldn't see a direct sequel until 1990. It was then that Capcom decided to use the knowledge of 4 years worth of intense arcade and console development to give us Wolf of the Battlefield 2, or as we know of it here in the US, Mercs. Now this is where things start getting good. Super Joe was back, looking decidedly more badass than ever before. He's out to rescue the president with the help of his 2 friends, Howard Powell and Thomas Clark. Together they are the Force. What an amazing name. That's right, this time you could be joined by 2 other friends for up to 3-player mayhem as you fight your way across 7 levels, destroying everything in sight. Harrier jets? No problem. Battleships? Don't make me laugh. There's just tons of improvements. Different weapons like a spread shot and grenade launcher that could be individually powered up, destructible environments, a screen-clearing smart bomb that would kill all the weak enemies and do heavy damage to the larger ones. You can even hijack enemy vehicles like jeeps, tanks, and boats for over-the-top carnage. This is all awesome, but let's face it, there's one improvement that made me really happy. A life bar. How can something so simple be so revolutionary? Well, running guns of the era, especially arcade ones, were very reliant on the one-hit death. Commando drove me freaking crazy. This is so much better. Now, compared to the amount of ports that the first game got, Mercs only had a handful, with the most noteworthy one being on the Sega Genesis. First, let's just get this right out of the way. The Genesis version is a 1-player ordeal. Multiplayer is nowhere to be seen, at all. At first you'd think this kinda kills the whole point of the game, but then you dig a little deeper. What's this? Original mode? That's right, the Genesis includes a whole different single-player mode that's kind of amazing. Original mode turns Mercs into a kind of action RPG. And I know that seems like it would never work in a million years, but stick with me here. Joe starts out his mission alone, but as you advance, you'll run into these shops. In each of these shops, you can buy speed and firepower upgrades, and refill your energy if needed. But where this mode really shines is that you can acquire party members that you can swap between as you advance. Each one has a different weapon and specialty, modeled after the various guns you use in the arcade mode. If one member is defeated, you pick another. And then when everybody is dead, then that's game over. It's a pretty cool approach for a game of this type. Even cooler is that each character has their own stats you can upgrade over time. After Mercs, the series would go on a pretty serious hiatus. We're talking 18 years here. In 2008, Wolf of the Battlefield Commando 3 would be released on Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network. Developed out of house by the at times questionable Backbone Entertainment, Commando 3 drops all connections to previous games in the series, but sticks pretty close to the execution of Mercs. The first thing you're going to notice here is the awful art style. It looks like a Flash game from 2001. The intro level sets up things in an interesting way. You plow your way through enemy lines, and after defeating the boss, the main characters get captured. Then we jump about 5 years into the future. The team is rescued from a prison camp and forced to go on another mission. Some power-hungry dictator, whatever. The biggest change to the gameplay is that now you shoot using the right stick on the controller. And as a big fan of twin-stick shooters, this made me pretty happy. It really helps the flow and finesse of the action, if not making it significantly easier overall. Unfortunately, beyond that, there's not much in the way of innovation here at all. While Mercs expanded on Commando's formula a ton, you'd certainly expect at least a little bit more after an 18-year gap, right? I mean, the weapons, same. Power-ups, same. Vehicles, same. Makes you kind of wonder why they even bothered. I honestly don't have a ton of love for this series in general. I guess Mercs is pretty fun, especially the Genesis port. I honestly don't care for the first game at all. Part 3 has its moments, but it's fairly soulless in the end. But what I do have a lot of love for, the spin-off series that took the focus off of Super Joe and put it on another Commando, a bionic one. But I suppose that's a tale for another time. Thanks for watching. Wolf Force! Wolf Force! Wolf!